All right, greetings, everyone. I just wanted to come on and record this to share the testimony of, I'm going to say it like my cousin says it, Hawaii 5-0. This past year 2023, in the Gregorian calendar and 5182 in the Hebraic calendar, was for me Jubilee. For those of you who aren't familiar with Leviticus 25, the 49th year, the seven Sabbaths, is a time of celebration in the Hebraic history. And the 50th year is a special time of rest, a special Sabbath, a special time of celebration. And the details are there. I won't go into that, but because this will be a little bit lengthy, so I'm going to warn you ahead of time. Maybe you want to skip ahead to or leave a little time, or any of those kinds of things, or watch later. I can be a little verbose, so though I don't apologize for that, I do forewarn you. So just want to talk about Hawaii 5-0, the Jubilee celebration for me in 2022. And my actual birthday is in March. And traditionally for me, I celebrate the entire month of March. But I knew that Jubilee was coming, the 50th year, and the 49th year, which is also special. I celebrated that as well. Had quite a few firsts and a lot of other wonderful things, which if you want to know more about that, we can talk about that later. And then in the 50th year, I just knew I wanted to celebrate big. And for those who aren't familiar with Leviticus 25, Jubilee lasts an entire year long. So it's a year-long celebration, and it's a rest, and it's a freeing, and it's a return, and it's a rejuvenation, a reset, all of those kinds of things. And so I really did want to celebrate. I wanted to celebrate big. But that wasn't quite in the plan, at least not in God's plan. And that was perfectly fine. There were lots of global conditions that would speak against that. However, I was just adamant. God knows our hearts, and He gives us the desires of our hearts. And so my desire is to just please Him and to be obedient to Him. And so Jubilee, did not quite, quote unquote, happen for me in March, though I still celebrated and celebrated every day of the year. And actually I started in the Hebraic year, which is in Rosh Hashanah, which is September of 2021. Just started the celebration then, because that actually was a time of the 50th year for the Hebraic calendar as well. So it was a Jubilee for them also. And having my life coincide with that was just another amazing thing, God. And the reason I'm giving the testimony is just to show His miraculous work in the midst of things that we may even think are disappointing, or are not our plan, or are out of sorts, or bad things, or anything like that. That He will come, and if we will take His perspective, if we will put our God focals on and see things the way that He sees them, then we will have a perspective that shows the miraculous for what it is. And I say miraculous as the world's term of the way that they describe things. But for us, people of God, this is our everyday living. This is how we live. And so God is always doing things that are His super added to our natural for us. And so because we are His children. And so anyway, getting into that, just wanted to share how I hadn't gotten that opportunity to carry out my own personal plan for the celebration. I kind of wanted to do it big. I wanted to have like a big party, invite, all of my friends and close associates and those kinds of things to come and celebrate. But as we know, large gatherings hasn't been the trend for a myriad of reasons of late in our society in the year 2022, and globally in the year 2022, right? And so, I originally had planned to do that in the summer, and just a course of events happened that I got a clear message that that was not the way to go. At least not at that point in time. So I said, well, Father, I'm going to just leave that in your hands. You're faithful. And I would love to celebrate. And I know you celebrate me. And I had literally, by the time Rosh Hashanah happened in 2021 in September, so just before the season of my actual birthday, I had become totally debt free. So fully released, no debt at all, completely free from all debt, all paid in full. And that had been a process of some time as well. But I mean, literally, so if you read Leviticus 25, you'll see, the things that are supposed to happen in Jubilee. And all of those things were happening for me. Newness and changes and so many things. And July happened to be the anniversary of that catalyst that started in my life in July of 2021. And so, I just, I got a call from my cousin back in July, towards the end of July in 2022. And she too was coming up to the celebration of her 50th birthday, her Jubilee, and hers is in November, was in November now. Mine happened to have been in March. And so she talked about how her husband wanted to do, something really big for her. And they came up with the plan to travel to Maui. Maui is in the state of Hawaii. It is one of the Hawaiian islands. And currently, I haven't been a whole lot of places. I've been a few places, but not a whole lot of places. And currently, my favorite place in the world thus far is Hawaii. So any chance I get an opportunity to go there, I'm probably going to say yes. And so she presented that to me and said, well, I know you celebrated your 50th birthday too. Would you like to come with us for her Hawaii 5-0 trip? And I was like, yeah, you had me sold at Hawaii. And she, proceeded to tell me about the trip and the different things and the plans, et cetera, and how much it probably would cost and, all of those kinds of things, what they were planning. A week long, from a Saturday to a Saturday, November 12th through November 19th. November 14th is my cousin's birthday. November 15th is our other cousin's birthday that lives in Omaha, who actually came on the trip too, Destiny. Gabe is the one that had the 50th birthday with me, Gabrielle. And my uncle, her dad, my mother's brother, his birthday is November the 19th. And so we were staying from just before her birthday to his birthday. And actually, Uncle was staying a little bit longer. He was coming a couple days before we all got there on that Saturday, the 12th, and he was leaving a couple days after his birthday. And so his trip was a little extended. But yeah, so she presented that to me and I said yes. Along the way, there were, a few things to wiggle around. I just wanted to make sure that I had provision, and I knew God would do that if he called me to that. So, prayed about it. There were some others we invited to the trip that didn't go. And then for the time off of work, even though, technically I have the vacation days, my boss was a little resistant to allowing me to go for whatever reason. She felt like it was still during the school year, et cetera, et cetera. However, I had not gotten an opportunity to take a vacation because I was working through the summer at the request of my boss's boss. And so, didn't get an opportunity to take any days off or anything like that. And so, I felt like, if Jubilee comes when it comes, and, best to take advantage of that season and to celebrate it with everything. And where else better than, my favorite place in the world. I hadn't been to Maui, the island of Maui. The Hawaiian Islands, there are 8 of them. I didn't realize there were 8 of them, but there are 8 of them. Maui's only one. I've been to one other thus far, and my plan is to go to all of them. all 8. And so this was 2 down, right? So it was just an answer to my heart's desire to celebrate. It, was the God plan to my failed man plan. Man's plans fail, God's plans prevail, right? And so, seizing that opportunity in wisdom, in spite of the opposition, was, the first, what the world calls miraculous thing, but our everyday living, the first super added to my natural. Then I found out that on the Saturday, the 19th, the 10 graduation, the graduation for our students, they planned that. Well, they originally had it a different date, but then they announced to us I want to say it was in September, they announced to us that they had to switch the date, and it was going to be on November the 19th, which was the day I was supposed to be coming back from Maui. And if you know anything about the travel from the South Pacific, which is where Hawaii is, back to what they call the mainland, they call the contiguous United States the mainland. And so the travel between there can be between, I think it's 4 to 6 hours difference in my time zone, which I live in Central Standard Time. Just a couple of hours difference, maybe 1 to 3 hours difference from, no, 2 to 3 hours, 2 to 4 hours difference from the Pacific Standard Time, like California time. But where I live, no, so Maui was 4 hours difference, 4 hours behind us, which means I gained 4 hours going, but I would lose 4 hours coming back. And God forbid that there were any, travel issues or anything like that. And so I did end up having to switch my flight to come back. So, just little things that were that I needed to give over to my faithful Father to address and to be the super on my natural, to give me wisdom and guidance, and to be able to do all of the things that I needed and wanted to do, and all of the things that He needed and wanted me to do, and then to get to have this wonderful celebration. Right? So, He just set up things so wondrously, to observe and to bask in His glory, from beginning to end, even in the little things, just the smallest graces, the small, minute things, the books that I've written. I did book sales, while I was there. I mean, just so many wondrous things happen, and I'll go through the course of events, starting with my uncle's story. So I left early Saturday morning, out to O'Hare Airport, which is the largest airport in Chicago and one of the largest airports in the entire world, and has won awards and all those kinds of things. But I do not favor O'Hare. We have another airport, Midway Airport in Chicago. We have a couple of other ones too, but those two are actually in the city. And Midway is quite a bit smaller, and it's easier to maneuver. It also doesn't have a section for international flights, which O'Hare does as well. So O'Hare's very vast. And so a lot of things take a lot of time sometimes to get through O'Hare, just to walk from one area to another. There's some spaces where you take the rail to get around to different gates and all of those other kinds of things. And so it's not my favorite, but it was the most economical. Got a really great price on my tickets through my cell phone company, right? Who does that? But yeah, my cell phone company dibbles and dabbles in a lot of different things, and travel is one of them. And so found amazing rates and discounts to go, and paid a really great price for the trip there and back, round trip tickets. I did have to change planes there and back once, and then had a little layover in LA going there, and not really a layover in Dallas, just to change planes in Dallas because we didn't really have a lot of minutes between or anything like that coming back. But anyway, got great prices on the tickets, etc. So I left here and went to my stop in LA and waited for the plane there, and sent little messages along the way for those who knew I was traveling. And lo and behold, in the in LAX, the airport there, someone walks up to me. He's like, "Excuse me, hello," and I'm like, "What?" And I'm like, "Okay, good morning," and it's my uncle. Now, he was supposed to be in Maui already because he was coming to the airport to pick me up, right? And he was not in Maui. He was right there in the airport with me. And that was really cool and amazing. And before I got to hear his story, he's like, I'm like, well, we now we're on the same plane. I got all that information. I'm like, oh, well, it would be great if we could sit together. He's like, well, let's ask and see if we can get seats together. I'm like, okay, let's do it. And so we did, and they gave us seats together. And so the 5-hour plane ride from LAX into Maui, I got to spend with my uncle and catching up, chatting away, sharing time, just, in my own personal time with him, right? And so, yeah, it turns out that the flight he was originally on, which was going to carry him over to Dallas in order to go from Dallas to Maui, something happened with the weather and they had to divert. They diverted to Kansas City, I believe it was, or Arkansas, one of the two. And, then it was to find a way to get to the flight that he needed to get out. And there was some kind of issue with the plane. There was a fire in one of the fuel areas where they actually fueled the planes in that airport. And so they had to make some other arrangements and adjustments to check things out first. And so then he missed his connecting flight that he was originally supposed to be on. And so through the course of events, God orchestrated it so that he went to Portland to spend time with my cousin Gabe, and her husband Sharif, and her daughter Shamira, his granddaughter. And he spent the night there and then flew out of Portland to LAX to meet my plane so that he could ride with me to Maui. And, all of the things that happened to him ahead of time, he said, you know what? I just look at it like it's a miracle. It's a miracle. I got to spend time with my daughter and her family, and I got to ride with you, to Maui. And I was like, yep, I agree. So all of that, we got there, we arrived. So many blessings. The scenery was wonderful. The rental car place picked us up, and my uncle had left his phone in the car, and we got that back without any hassles or anything. I was driven around. All the other things were planned and set up, by my cousin's husband, my cousin Sharif, and then my uncle, the different things that he needed just for him because his trip was a little more extended. And just seeing the blessings just turn over and over and over, all of the places that we needed to connect to, and I'll keep going more. But yeah, so my cousin then came in, and their plane was supposed to get in at a certain time. It got in on time, but there was some kind of issue with the pedway where they connected to the plane for the people to come off, and it broke, and so they didn't have a place for the plane to go, so they could use a different one because all the other ones were being used. And so they ended up waiting on the plane for some time. Well, our cousin Destiny was coming from Omaha, which is also where my uncle lives most of the year. Some of the year he doesn't live there. When it's cold, he lives in Mexico. But most of the year he lives there. And so she was coming from Omaha, and they were supposed to, my cousin Gabe and her husband Sharif and her daughter Shamira, they were supposed to go pick up their vehicle from the rental car company and then come back to get Destiny from the airport when her flight got in. And it turned out that, they were getting too late to do that. They were getting too late to get their car from the rental car company because it was going to close. And so the rental car company brought their vehicle to the airport and parked it for them and then left it for them. And they were just supposed to turn the paperwork in later on. And just as they were coming off the plane, Destiny was coming off her plane. And so they all met up together. Amazing, right? I mean, God is just orchestrating all things. And so then they all went together to the parking space where the car was left. And then what was the van? Where the van was left for them, their rental. So they went and got that. And yeah, it was just awesome and amazing how everything was orchestrated. So then we just came and connected with them from the car my uncle had gotten. And it was amazing. So then we went to go and get, all of our, staples for the week. We went to Costco. I think we also stopped at Safeway, I want to say. But Costco and Walmart. Costco was the main place where we got most of the items and checking to see what everybody wanted to eat, all of that. And it turns out that we were staying in upcountry. So the island of Maui is 2 large mountains on either side, which I'm told are actually dormant volcanoes. And then sort of along the edges and in the middle, you have, the lowlands and then the beaches on the outskirts. And so up one of the mountains, we were to go into upcountry. And that was where we stayed in the first lodging place that we were going. So it was really in the mountains, which was pretty cool. Being up in the clouds, kind of close to God. There were quite a few animals up there living, some cows in pasture, and then also roosters, which are like everywhere in Maui for some reason, roosters and chickens, and they roost in the trees. So yeah, they sleep in the trees. So they do fly up there, just so we know. Yeah, it was pretty cool to see that. And cats, lots of cats everywhere too. So yeah, probably why the roosters are in the trees. And yeah, there was a donkey as well up in upcountry. I'm not sure where exactly, but it was pretty close because yeah, you could hear him in the morning a couple of times. Call it out. So anyway, but it was just beautiful and glorious, and no place better for sunrises and sunsets. Just amazing. The amenities at the place where we stayed in upcountry. So they booked the lodgings through Airbnbs, and it was just amazing. Yeah, I mean, in the place where we stayed in upcountry, it was the owner told us the second day was formerly a resort, a full service resort, and then that owner sold it and it became a day spa. And then the people who now use it as the Airbnb purchased it. And so it was 3 bedrooms, fireplace, they had their own kind of staples, smart appliances, fully stocked with dishes and, just even the little bitty amenities like a teapot, which I love tea. They had coffee pot too, but they had a separate like teapot where you just make the water for tea. And that was like, hands down, that's the best. Just saying. But just little things that God, does and that are so wonderful. And Destiny, our cousin Destiny, who came from Omaha, she actually is a chef with a food truck and everything, like in Omaha, Nebraska. And so she did quite a bit of the cooking. Stellar, I might add. Just saying. I mean, I was living it up. The location where we stayed, I told you it was a resort and a day spa right after that. And so it had the pool, the lighted pool, it had the whirlpool for the hot tub, it had the sauna, which I used every chance I got, just saying. Yeah, and paths to walk along, through the mountain little trails, beautiful flowers. We saw rainbows, the covenant of God, every single day. And one day, I mean, there was this rainbow that just would not stop, and it just kept coming, like closer, closer, closer. And I don't know, I think we probably saw it like 12 different times by the time we were actually leaving out. But it was just amazing to just bask in creation, to just bask in the glory of God. Yeah, and that's just day one, right? Which was really kind of like night one. So the next day, day two, got up, I'm on a different 4 hours, behind time or ahead of time, I should say. I don't know. But yeah, I got up and, caught sunrise, up on the mountain, in up country, and the rainbows, coming at the beginning of the day. All of the little amenities, in the lodging, had my hot tea and got my books. I had Sesha's book with me. It talks all about nature and everything that she wrote in there was like all of the things that I was experiencing from the flight, all the way through to the different things we get to see. Yeah, and just awesome. The host, the owners, came out that morning. Well, it was closer probably to the afternoon. Half of us were morning people, but the other half were late people. So they didn't get up before like 11 a.m. or something like that. Well, we were up probably closer to their time. I was probably up more like 3 or 4 o'clock their time. But that's kind of the time I would have gotten up, like, in my when it's already 8 o'clock in the morning where I am, right? So yeah, the host and the owner of the Airbnb came out and told us, the story of the property and places that we could go to visit, of the things that we might want to see. She also made us like native drinks with fresh, fruits and vegetables and those kind of things. She told us about where we were going for our next excursion the following day. We took that day to kind of rest a little bit, and I think we went out to dinner. And then the following day went on one of the excursions she recommended, which was to Twin Falls to see the waterfalls. And it was a vast farmland owned by private owners. It wasn't owned by the government or anything, or the state, or even like the local, the territories or areas or cities, or that. And it had trails and sites, to see like really huge bamboo growing and all those kinds of things. And in some of the pictures, you might have seen like the warnings about the fire ant treatments. So stay on the path, because otherwise you might, run into things you don't want to run into. So we went on that excursion, and the waterfalls were suitable for swimming and everything. Most of us didn't go swimming in there because we didn't know that they were suitable for that. Some waded, and then I think my uncle, he like swam in the actual one of the actual waterfalls that they had. The beautiful foliage and landscapes though, for that day 3, which was Gabe's birthday also. And so, it was just a wonderful, awesome time. Took a nature walk around the property too earlier. And so just the wonderful, awesome, things to see. And, I told you there's this dichotomy in Maui where you have the mountains, which are the actual volcanoes, I guess, dormant volcanoes. And then the beach areas, and then the areas that are like inland. And so on the following day, day 4, we went to the mountains, Mount Haleakala, I believe it was. Sorry if I'm pronouncing it wrong, but got a chance to actually, just get in there up above the clouds, literally, over 10,000 feet up from ground level. Just bountiful, beautiful scenery and sights, and just everywhere, always, all of those little wondrous things. And then on the next day, which was Wednesday, it was Destiny's birthday, and the same thing up at sunrise, and before sunrise even, and actually got to do an interview with Apostle on that same day, with Apostle Dempsey, and Apostle Cynthia Dempsey. For those who are watching this who are not a part of EICYT or Epic or our leadership team or any of that, Apostle Cynthia Dempsey, a leader in the mountains of education, family, business, arts. Not sure if she's like leading in any other mountains, but definitely those. And got an opportunity just to do a segment with her in her November, her All Things New November, Innovators, KNOW, and November, KNOW. And so, yeah, so catch her on YouTube, look it up, Triunity Publications. And so, yeah, just wonderful, awesome. Sorry, Triuni Publications. Yep, that's the page, the YouTube channel that you can catch her on. Excuse me. So yeah, so the rainbows abounded on that particular day. And if you watch the interview, I don't know how much she's going to cut or where it's going to be cut, but you can probably hear like all the creatures in the background, the birds and the chirping and maybe other things too in the background, because there was always roosters crowing and birds chirping and other animals as well. But yeah, the rainbows abounded that particular day. I'm so serious. Literally, there was this one rainbow that just kept appearing closer and closer to where we were staying in upcountry. It started and it went all the way, like a full band, all the way from where the beach was over the mountain and over down to the other side, where the grasslands were, and sort of the other side of the inland. And it kept creeping more. So it's coming from this other side, the mountain that was on the other side. And then it would show up again, after it dissipated some. It would show up again a little bit closer. And then it would dissipate, and then it would show up again a little bit closer. And then it would dissipate, and then it would show up again a little closer. And I literally, I did a little video that was probably around the 10th time, but by the time that was the day we were leaving that particular lodging, going to the next lodging that we're going to. And literally by the time we left, we had seen it about 12 different times.